Myself, Shweta Sachdeva, welcome you all in the Faculty Development Program of Indian Knowledge System. आज हम अपना चौथा दिन का द्वितीय सत्र प्रारंभ करने जा रहे हैं। इस यात्रा में आगे बढ़ते हुए आज हमारे बीच प्रोफेसर अरविंद झा हैं। वेलकम सर, आई वेलकम यू. Sir has done his bachelor's, master's and MPhil degree and PhD from Delhi University. Sir was the faculty dean in the School of Education, BB Ambedkar University, Lucknow, and in Himachal Pradesh, in Wardha too. So, sir has been a Fulbright Nehru International Education Administrator Fellowship awardee for the year 2016-17. Congratulations, sir. Inspired teacher awardee
Thank
by
you.
President of India to participate in the in-residence program at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Sir was credited with widely acclaimed book Nyaya Philosophy, Epistemology and Education, Constructivist Epistemology and Pedagogy, Insight in Teaching, Learning and Learning. Then currently, Sir is the editor of Indian Journal of Teacher Education, published by NCTE New Delhi. Sir has presented several papers in several international conferences at California, US, UK, Canada, etc. Sir has visited many international universities too. Sir is on the editorial board of several internationally reputed journals such as International Academic Board of African Journal of Pedagogy and Curriculum, Journal of Elementary Education and Research. Dr. Sunita, please mute yourself. Dr. Sunita, I request you to mute yourself. Thank you. Sir has acted as a resource person from NCRT, SCRT, Haryana Institute of Public Administration, Academic Staff College, Jamia Millia Islamia. Then he has delivered talk as invited speaker in different institutions in India and is the proholic contributor to philosophical and educational studies and research. I'm really glad to welcome you, sir. Over to you.
So can I start?
Sure, sir, sure.
Fine. Yeah, internet was creating some problem.
No issues, sir.
Okay.
आपको सुनने के लिए हम वेट कर सकते हैं बिल्कुल.
Thank you. Thank you, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, who gave me this opportunity, and Trishla ji, who contacted me for this. Friends, how my association started with epistemology in Indian thought system. I remember it was almost perhaps 2000 or something. I was participating in one of the international conference as a young scholar in Hyderabad. And I'll not name the person, but the Vice Chancellor said there is nothing like epistemology in Indian thought system. And I was that time pursuing my PhD. So I could not digest that. But being a young scholar, he was the Vice Chancellor, so many people, I could not object to that. But to my utter surprise, people always say that Lord Macaulay wrote like this because Lord Macaulay had no idea about what Indian education is all about, and particularly the knowledge that is there in Indian thought system. But to my surprise, even Indians don't know about the Indian thought system. Indians don't know the kind of epistemology, metaphysics, axiology, these things are present in our Indian thought system, right? Maybe because the multidisciplinarity is not the area which is celebrated in India, but now it has started its journey. And that time I was doing my PhD on epistemological import of Nyaya philosophy. Right? And this is how my journey started. And almost after giving 5 years of my life to understand what epistemology is, Indian thought system, and then I came out with this. So what I'll be doing to keep my lecture short, crisp, and meaningful, I'll be making presentations. Right? So present now, allowed to share this screen. Hope you can see my screen.
Not yet, sir. We're waiting.
Can you see
Yeah,
my screen now?
yeah, it's there.
Okay, okay. So the topic that has been given to me is epistemology in Indian thought system. And I would like to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the university and the entire team allowing me to talk what I wanted to talk and to understand what is epistemology in Indian thought system. Almost 5 to 6 years I devoted. So what I'm going to do, firstly, I'll be talking about what is epistemology in Indian thought system. Then, among all the 6 schools of thought, Nyaya is my area. So, Nyaya and its subject, and Nyaya and education. And lastly, we are not going to understand epistemology for the sake of understanding epistemology only. We must understand a particular concept of philosophy to have pedagogical implications, because teacher educators are also known as pedagogues, right, friends? And this is the book that I published in that year, Nyaya, Philosophy, Epistemology and Education. This is purely based on my PhD research work, friends, right? So whatever I'm going to share for coming 1 hour, I have already described in this. If you look at the Indian schools of philosophy, right, people generally say Astik Parampara and Nastik Parampara. And among the Nastik Parampara, people will talk about Buddhism, Jainism, Charvakas, and Ajivikas, right? And Astika Parampara, there are 6 schools of thought, which is also known as Saddarshan, right? Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta, right? And this is this is how people have categorized. But it's very difficult to categorize something like in an orthodox system and non-orthodox system, right? But anyway, though this is how people have come out. Similarly, as far as the Indian school of philosophy is concerned, as I have mentioned, if you find, okay, let's talk about the Astik Parampara, right? Those who believe in the authority of the Vedas, then comes only the based on Vedic texts are the Mimamsas and Vedantas. But Nyaya, Yoga, Sankhya, Vaisheshik, they are the independent schools of thought, right? And Nyaya is the school of thought. I'll not hesitate to say that for a long, long time, Nyaya didn't recognize the importance of God in the liberation of human beings. It said this pure logic and reasoning are capable to liberate a human being. So among all the padarthas that Maharishi Gautam has mentioned, God is not mentioned in that scheme of liberation at all. Fine. Now, as far as the epistemology in Indian thought system is concerned, let's try to understand what epistemology is all about. Epistemology, the philosophical study of the nature, origin, and limits of human knowledge. So you can say it is, if you try to understand the nature of knowledge, the origin of knowledge, the limits of human knowledge, right, then from the philosophical point of view, it is called epistemology in English. And Hindi people say Jnana Mimamsa. So the term is derived in the Western thought system from the Greek word episteme, E-P-I-S-T-E-M-E. That is knowledge, and logos, that is reason, some people say, or love for knowledge. Say reason and knowledge, right? And accordingly, the field is sometimes referred to as the theory of knowledge. So in short, if you find sometimes it's difficult to mention the word epistemology, you can say theory of knowledge, study of theory of knowledge. So epistemology in the Indian thought system in general and epistemological traditions in particular comprises at least 1 source of knowledge and maximum 8 sources of knowledge. For example, Charvakas believe only a source of knowledge, that is perception. And if you come to from Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and ultimately when you come to the level of Vedanta, they believe in minimum 6 and maximum 8 sources of knowledge, right? So in English, you can say they are perception, inference, vowel testimony, comparison, presumption, and non-apprehension. So in Sanskrit, they have used the term pratyaksh, anuman, upaman, shabd, arthapatti, and anuplabdhi. Anyway, so you can say in short, as a theory of knowledge, what we study in epistemology or Jnana-Mimamsa. What is the knowledge and nature of knowledge? What are sources of knowledge? What are types of knowledge? How to ascertain a particular knowledge is valid or invalid. So you can say validity and invalidity of knowledge, etc., etc. But I would like to share with you, because I follow epistemology very sincerely throughout the world, and different connotations, different terminologies, different area of studies within epistemologies are emerging. For example, in academic world, people are working in the area from the psychological point of view and as well as philosophical point of view, epistemological belief, epistemological thought system, right? People also talk about epistemic violence, etc., etc. But for me, as a student of epistemology in general and Nyaya epistemology in particular, many of you will agree, today the challenge is not what is knowledge, what are sources of knowledge, how to ascertain which knowledge is valid or which knowledge is invalid. Rather, today the challenge is, how do you know what we know? What does it mean? It means, if somebody asks me, I'll give you a maximum example from mathematics and other sources, because primarily my first degree is in mathematics, that if somebody suppose asks me, do you know what is a set? And I say, yeah, I know what is a set. And I define a set. A set is a collection of well-defined objects. Fine. So the person who has asked me, the moment I utter these words, the person will be very happy. Oh, he knows what is a set. But how do I know that I know it? Or how do you will ascertain that what I have uttered right now, I have knowledge of that? It could be only information of that, or it could be only on memory based, right? So today's challenge is, how do you know what we know? Well, friends, if you look at the epistemological analysis of knowledge, then in Western thought system, there are 5 distinctions. Like, first form of knowledge is considered mental and non-mental conception of knowledge. The second is occasional and dispositional knowledge. The third is a priori and a posteriori knowledge. Fourth is a necessary and contingent propositions. And fifth is analytic and synthetic propositions, right? But I'll not go by these schemes. Rather, I'll go by how knowledge is depicted in Indian traditions, particularly the 6 schools of thought. And among 6 schools of thought, I'll confine myself to Nyaya school of thought, right? I'll talk about that. So this is, in short, that in Indian thought system, at least 1 and maximum 6 to 8 people have talked about. So perception, inference, comparison, right? And then people say, okay, postulation, vowel testimony, non-apprehension, and this is how things go on. Well, let me talk about Nyaya philosophy. What is so unique about Nyaya philosophy or Nyaya epistemology? Maharishi Gautam is considered, who is also known as Akshapad, the first systematic writer on logic in Indian philosophy. And it discusses the question whether it is possible to conceive the means of knowledge independently of knowledge and the objects of knowledge. And that's the beauty of Maharishi Gautam. So the Nyaya philosophy is what? When we say Nyaya, Nyaya here is not justice. But yes, justice there in terms of logic and reasoning. So the Nyaya philosophy is a system of logical realism. And it is mainly interested in the problem of epistemology and logic. So you'll find in Nyaya philosophy, 3 things are intricately connected On the one hand is the logic, on the other hand epistemology, and on the third hand that is the cognition. How do I know? What is knowledge? Yes, fine. But how do I know that knowledge? So it holds that the objects of the world have an independent existence of their own apart from all knowledge or experience. And this realistic view of the world is based not on mere faith or feeling, intuition or a scriptural testimony, but on logical grounds and critical reflections. You know, friends, you ask any educationist, you ask any sensible being or any academia, and they will say, okay, what is the skill that is required in 21st century? And people say critical thinking. To your utter surprise, the Maharshi Gautam, long way back,
तो आपने कहा क्यों उससे?
मेधा जी प्लीज आप अनम्यूट कर लें अपने आप को। मेधा जी,
मैम उसे कहीं 10 भी ज्यादा मिलेंगे वो ज्वाइन कर जाएगी, 5 भी ज्यादा मिलेंगे।
मेधा जी प्लीज।
एक्चुअली क्या है, दोनों बच्चे अपने अपने हो गए हैं और शौक है और जिम्मेदारी नहीं है। कोई लोग जिम्मेदारी के संग भी करते हैं। देखो जब कोरोना टाइम था तो उसमें कितनी चीजों का बढ़ चढ़ के उसने पार्टिसिपेट किया, किसकी क्या उसे है कि मैं
मैम आस्क कंसोल टू म्यूट।
बढ़े हम लोग
सर वी आर डूइंग
Fine.
Just read.
The uniqueness about the Nyaya philosophy and Maharshi Gautam is that not only today, hundreds of years back, he said that the realistic view of the world shouldn't be based merely on faith or feeling, intuition or a scriptural testimony, but on logical grounds and critical reflection. And that's why wherever I got the opportunity in this world, be it US or Australia or the Canada or the Singapore, wherever, very emphatically I have said that the Nyaya syllogism is a much more comprehensive and profound than Aristotelian syllogism. I'll show you that example also in coming time. Well, friends, so Nyaya epistemology confines itself to the 4 sources of knowledge: perception, that is a pratyaksh, comparison, upman, inference, anuman, and words or the shabd or the reliable sources. So pratyaksh, anuman, upaman or shabd. Well, the value of Nyaya system not only lies, right, in the understanding of the types of knowledge, the sources of knowledge, or the analysis of knowledge, but the system of Nyaya philosophy lies especially in its methodology or theory of knowledge on which it builds its philosophy. So it upholds that to attain the ultimate end of life, that is a liberation, we require a philosophy for the knowledge of reality and logic for determining the conditions and methods of true knowledge. I don't think any school of thought in the world has propounded such kind of argument and established also. And that's why I say that the value of Nyaya philosophy in general and Nyaya epistemology in particular lies especially in its methodology or theory of knowledge on which it builds entire philosophy. It upholds that to attain the ultimate end of life, which you can call it liberation, mukti, whatever, nishreyas, whatever. So to attain the ultimate end of life, that is a liberation, we require what? We require a philosophy for the knowledge of reality. We require logic for determining the conditions, and also we require methods of true knowledge. And that's why, as I said earlier, at least one, that is a pratyaksh, direct knowledge or perception, and maximum 8 sources of knowledge have been ascertained in Indian thought system. So first, pratyaksh, direct knowledge, or you can say perception. There is a famous saying in our culture, pratyaksham kim pramanam. प्रत्यक्ष को किसी प्रमाण की आवश्यकता नहीं होती है. So when say direct knowledge, that is a pratyaksh, perception, including sense cognition and other direct means of knowledge. The second, inference, anuman. Third, knowledge by similarity, that is upaman. Verbal testimony, that is a shat, right? Including a scripture testimony, shastra or agam, whatever. Presumption, arthapatti. Implication, sambhavya. Non-existence, abhav. And tradition, that is etihe. All right? But no, today's, I'll confine to 4 only, that is a pratyaksh, anuman, upman, or shat. So Nyaya follows the method of treatment called enunciation, definition, and examination. And recently I was delivering a talk to the scientists of India, and I said, see, the Nyaya epistemology or Nyaya logic can be applied in research methodology as well. Right? Well, so they very clearly say that the valid presentative knowledge or prama is of 4 types: perception, inference, comparison, and verbal testimony. Non-valid presentative knowledge, that is aprama, is of 3 types. They are doubt, sanshay, error, bhram or vipriya, and hypothetical argument, you can call it tark. So valid presentative knowledge, that is a prama, is a definite or certain, right? Faithful or unerring, non-reproductive experience of the object. I'm not saying, these are the words that I have taken from Maharishi Gautam's Nyaya Sutra and other commentaries, etc., etc. So the truth and falsity of knowledge consist of what? The truth and falsity of knowledge consist respectively in its correspondence to facts. But the test of truth or falsity consists in inference from the success or failure of our practical activities in relation to its object. So true knowledge leads to its object, that is a successful practical activity, while false knowledge ends in the failure and disappointment. Right? Well, you will find there are n number of things, and so many things can be said, but within 1 hour, I have to cover the entire topic, so certain things I'll skip. Now, what Nyaya has done, the Nyaya has produced a theory of cognition, and that's why I say Nyaya philosophy is unique as far as the epistemology is concerned. You'll find epistemology, logic, and cognition are intricately, they are connected to one another. So the Nyaya has produced a theory of cognition, a doctrine of objects of cognition, a concept of proof, and a technique of refutation. And that's why wherever I get the opportunity to address the budding lawyers in different NLUs, I say, make this course, at least in 1 semester, compulsory. Our budding lawyers must understand and know what kind of refutation techniques, argumentative techniques are prevalent in our own knowledge system, in our own thought system. So the theory of cognition intends to establish the objects of valid cognition. And the objects of knowledge, that is a prama, are the self, the body, and the senses, and their objects. So until unless all the 4 are in place, right, true knowledge will not take place. So they say that the objects of knowledge are what? The self, the body, the senses, and their objects. And in addition to all these things, cognition, mind, activity, mental defects, rebirth, the feelings of pleasure and pain, suffering, freedom from suffering, all these things have been discussed in great detail. Now, the first source of knowledge, that is pramana. As I said, I again repeat, the Nyaya system is founded on a firm belief in our capacity to explain the universe with the help of 4 pramanas. What are those? Pratyaksh, Anuman, Upaman, or Shabd. Or you can say perception, inference, comparison, and verbal testimony. What is perception? What is a pramana? Pramana is the way of knowing anything truly, not to know only, knowing truly. It includes all sources or all methods. It gives us true knowledge, which is grounded in correspondence theory of truth. Coupled with this is the Nyaya view that a praman is meant to be effective. That is, it enables us to accept, to reject, or to treat with indifference the object cognized. So within the theory of cognition itself, the first 3 pramanas, that is a perception, inference, and verbal testimony or analogy, present a cogency to theory of knowledge. And that's why it is considered coherent, very, very coherent. So what is a perception? Perception is a definite cognition. Right? When I say, I perceive this that way, or my perception is this, what does it mean? It means that when I say my perception is so and so, it means if I say so and so, it means I possess definite cognition of a particular thing or reality. So perception is what? Perception is a definite cognition, which is produced by how? How that is produced? That is produced by sense-object contact and is a true or unerring. So it is immediate cognition. Perception has been classified into then ordinary and extraordinary, lockic, and it's not only the lockic that through eyes only, through mental eyes also you can perceive certain things. So lockic perception is the result of usual sense contact with objects present to the sense. In aulaic perception, the object is such as is not ordinarily present to sense, but is conveyed to sense through an unusual medium. Now come to the inference, that is Anumana. It is a conclusive proof. When I say, I have inferred this like this, it means conclusively you have a proof. So inference as a conclusive proof must be stated in the form of 5 propositions. And they are called its avyav, right? Like there is a famous Panchpada Siddhanta. And on the basis of Panchpada Siddhanta only, I say Aristotelian syllogism is nothing in front of Nyaya syllogism. Right? Pratigya, Hetu, Udaharan, Upnay, and Nigaman. One of the finest models of teaching can be developed on the basis of this. So friends, this is also known as, which I call it Panchpada Siddhanta, 5-membered syllogism, different from 3-membered Aristotelian syllogism. You all know what Aristotle says: man is a mortal, Ram is a man, so Ram is a mortal. But how do you know all men are mortal? All men are mortal. Ram is a man, so conclusion is Ram is mortal. But the question is, how do you know all men are mortal? Yeah, logically you can say. Similarly, you take the example of crow, right? But when you look at the Panchpada Siddhanta of syllogism, that's a much ahead than Aristotelian syllogism, friends. Well, they have given the definition of what is a proposition, right? Pratigya is the first proposition which asserts something. Hetu is the second proposition which states the reason for this assertion. The Udaharan is the universal propositions showing the connection between the reason and the asserted facts and supposed by known instances. Upman is the process of naming the objects through a given description, right? And it is the knowledge of the relation between a name and a things so named on the basis of a given description. Similarly, Shabd. What is Shabd? One of the finest description of what is a shabd? You will be surprised to know, I mean, I have asked this question to myself many times. Does a word exist? You'll find no word exists. It's the sound that exists. Words don't exist. That's why one of the finest description of shabd, how sentences are formed, that have been given in Nyaya epistemology. Shabd consists in understanding the meaning of the statement of a trustworthy person or any accepted authority sources such as scriptures. Or the authority could be the person as well. So it gives us knowledge about certain things through the understanding of the meaning of sentences, either spoken or written by some authoritative person or source. So Nyaya, friends, Nyaya means Nyaya philosophy or Nyaya epistemology. Nyaya philosophy in general and Nyaya epistemology in particular. Nyaya epistemology, with its strengths and limitations, proclaims an epistemology which meets the theoretical needs and extends the operational boundaries of knowledge for qualitative advance in education. I know I'm speaking for a university, for teachers in Delhi. So I had to relate these concepts with education as well. And that's why I have said, friends, that if we are sincere to understand what is the knowledge or the analysis of knowledge in our Indian thought system, we must bank upon Nyaya philosophy. Why? Because Nyaya epistemology, with its strengths, it has its limitations as well. All schools of thought has its own limitations. Nyaya, nothing is, ultimate. Nyaya, with its strengths and limitations as well, proclaims an epistemology which meets the theoretical needs and extends the operational boundaries of knowledge for qualitative advance in education. If you go through my book, I have written this. I have written this in my thesis as well as in the book. So it's a principal doctrine of valid knowledge, right? Lend consumers value to the aims of education, be it for virtue, power, possibility, capitalize the rough experience or qualifications of sthita pragya, as I mentioned in Gita as well. It prompts sound props for educational theorization to further govern educational practices through reasoned arguments and rational principles. Right? So reasoning and logic, they are the main, right? So with its advocacy of the four pramanas, Nyaya permits of no nonsense in providing a formal or dependable, defensible knowledge, which is one of the major concerns of education as a science of reasoning, right? One thing more I would like to add here, it goes beyond the analytic descriptions to solicit analytico-synthetic approach which upholds deduction induction process in a symbiotic relationship, providing pedagogic understanding to educational practices. Friends, when we were doing a Bachelor of Education, and most of you who are with me right now, when you are doing your Bachelor of Education, as far as the method of teaching is concerned, we all studied that inductive method of teaching is opposite to deductive method of teaching, or deductive method of teaching is opposite to inductive method of teaching. Am I right? You will be surprised to know. Nyaya epistemology very clearly says, no. Induction and deductions are the two faces of the same coin. So when people ask me, okay, you spent 5 years to understand what epistemology is all about, and that too, contextualizing in Indian thought system, can you summarize the entire thesis in one statement? And I have arrived at the conclusion, and today I proclaim and I say, no induction is possible without deduction, and no deduction is possible without induction. And that's the beauty of Indian epistemology in general and Nyaya epistemology in particular. Not only that, I've written in my thesis and in my book as well, that it is the epistemology that provides guided lives to pedagogy as far as its operations in the classroom is concerned. So as is your belief, so will be your pedagogic practices, right? So it has been rightly called the architectonic of logic, with the wealth of conceptual as well as the procedural rules of valid knowledge it provides. Its enunciation of the theory of knowledge and exposition of pramanas have made a lasting contribution to not only the pursuit of valid thinking, but to the pedagogical nuances as well. You know, hundreds of PhDs have been produced in this world on epistemic belief system. But unfortunately, taking a clue from Indian epistemology, in India, no PhD thesis has been produced either in the Department of Philosophy or in the Department of Education. If I believe that the mathematical truth is the ultimate truth, on the basis of this epistemic understanding, my pedagogical practices will be completely different from if I believe that no reality, no knowledge is ultimate knowledge. All realities are mental constructed reality. So all mathematical knowledge, differing from Aristotle and Plato, they are also mental construction. My pedagogical approach will be completely different. Okay. Now moving, how much time I have? 15 minutes left. So it is contended that the Naic exposition of knowledge not only goes well with rational thinkers, it finds acceptance by those who set their store by empirical experience as the cornerstone of education. Even the pragmatic tenor of Naic theory of knowledge is in congruence with the scientific mode of acquiring knowledge, as it employs protection and Anuman as the major sources of acquiring knowledge. A is greater than B, B is greater than C, so conclusion is A is greatest among all the three. And this inference and this kind of analogies are present in Indian epistemology. And that's why we should expose ourselves as far as the epistemic and metaphysical understanding of education is concerned. In education is concerned, right? We can bank upon the 6 schools of thought. So in fine, without being antithetical to scientific temper, it sustains what is a rational in realization of valid knowledge. I repeat, friends. What is rational in realization of valid knowledge? So all those philosophers who say Indian philosophy is only about spiritualism, they are not correct. They haven't studied it very well. So its inadequacies indeed are better addressed to its metaphysical assumptions, which it appropriates from later on the Vaisheshik school of thought, and not to its epistemological import. And that's why sometimes Nyaya school of thought or Nyaya epistemology and Vaisheshik epistemology both are considered as syncretical school of thought. For Vaisheshik, only perception and inference, only 2 sources of valid knowledge. Well, come to the syllogism, the Tark. Syllogism in Indian tradition, Indian thought system is called Tark, which is a form of Anuman. In Nyaya, it contains, as I said earlier, 5 members of propositions. Inference is regarded of 2 kinds, right? For one's own sake and for the sake of convincing others. So I need logic for myself, as well as I need logic and reasoning or syllogism in general to convince others. So the logical system of Nyaya deals with all those objects of knowledge which lead to validity, which is a cognized reality, and also those which thwart or color valid thinking. So the end of reasoning is the termination of all doubts. That's the end goal. There's no doubt. Yeah, I'm reminded of one German mathematician come philosopher said, I doubt, therefore I exist, Kozio Ogonsu. But it says that the beauty of reasoning is that. So all the four pramanas implied by Nyaya epistemologists in some form or other try to seek support for a judgment from external quarters that is other than the knower. And so you can say, if you take a side of objectivists and subjectivists, this is out and out an objectivist viewpoint. It lends credence to the correspondence theory of truth. However, on closer scrutiny, this position with regard to the nature of knowledge will undergo some modifications. And that possibility is always there. Every perceptor, every person has a right to modify knowledge. And this is how, the domain of knowledge, the store of knowledge, the vastness of knowledge expands in every era. Now, what is the implication? So what we should do? One, our education must concentrate for the qualitative advance, not only the qualitative education. I don't use quality education. I say education for qualitative advance or qualitative advance. You can, if you feel like, you can call creative advance as well. It is deliberately mentioned to refer to sanitizing function of epistemology vis-a-vis the knowledge that education deals with. We all will agree, almost all educational institutions deals in what? Deals in knowledge. So knowledge, in any case, has to be what? Not invalid knowledge, but the valid knowledge. So Nyaya, philosophy in general, and Nyaya epistemology in particular, with its adherence to the principles and doctrines of valid knowledge, acquires importance not only as an essential element in the Indian epistemology as such, but in imbued with all the possibilities of putting education on an even keel in terms of its aims and operations. I would like to quote here, for Socrates, it was a virtue. If you go by the importance of knowledge, so knowledge is acknowledge the concern of education. Oh, he is a knowledgeable professor, or he or she is a knowledgeable teacher. Oh, that guy is a knowledgeable guy. What do you mean by that? So it has been so since the dawn of formalized form of education in all times and climes. So acquisition of knowledge is a prerequisite for any educated person. For Socrates, it is a virtue. For Francis Bacon, knowledge is power. For Socrates, knowledge is a virtue. For Dewey, knowledge is a possibility capitalized through experience. And the Bhagavad Gita mentions it, discriminative knowledge, as one of the qualifications of Sthita Pragya. Who is Sthita Pragya? A person of equanimity, poise, and mental balance. And for that, also, knowledge is required. And the kind of description and analysis Nyaya epistemology has done, I have no hesitation to say, no school of thought, either from the Nastik Parampara or from the Astik Parampara, has done. And that's why I feel so proud, and thanks to my supervisor who asked me to understand epistemology from Indian thought system point of view. And I have no hesitation to say, friends, that the Nyaya, with its emphasis on external validity, has pinpointed need for knowledge to be defined, knowledge to be redefined, knowledge to be constructed, reconstructed, and examined to suit the needs of the mood of the age and temper of the times. And this aspect assumes significance when realized that education has to be, as Ian Whitehead's expression, what appears today, it's just suffering from isomorphism. There is a lot of dead wood being passed on to the young minds in the name of knowledge, which is educationally stifling the natural and potential growth of the learners. So friends, in Nyaya, with its firm advocacy of the four pramanas, that is, perception, inference, comparison, and verbal testimony, would permit no nonsense and would positively provide a format for dependable, defensible knowledge. Right? As I gave you the example, perhaps this is the first epistemology in the world which doesn't perceive induction opposite to deduction or deduction opposite to induction. As the debate started after Socratic and Aristotelian syllogism raised by Francis Bacon, that the science is inductive in nature and mathematics is deductive in nature. I mean, within the tradition of science and mathematics, they brought this distinction. But so brilliantly, this philosophy very clearly says there's nothing as such which exists. So what is needed? You ask any teacher educator, please name some teaching models. They will give you the name of teaching models based on Western thought system, in Western traditions developed by them. But we people love to talk about Indian traditional knowledge, no? But ask any teacher educator, ask any teacher, ask even philosopher, forget about it, and ask, have you developed any teaching model based on Indian theory of knowledge? Including myself, frankly speaking. No, answer will be no. So friends, in the beginning when I say, always we curse Macaulay that he had no access to what Indian thought system comprises or Indian knowledge system comprises of, and he said that the entire knowledge that exists in India can be reduced to the one self of one Almeida of the one library of Europe. Even our Indian teachers, Indian professors, Indian academia is not aware of that. It's not that they don't have access to knowledge. Access is not a problem today. The problem is we fail to understand our epistemic belief system, which is rooted in Indian thought system. Without studying anything, we claim that we understand Indian theory of knowledge or Indian knowledge system. Neither you study from its historicity point of view, the genesis point of view, nor from the cultural point of view. Forget about the knowledge point of view. Anyway, I would like to conclude so that we can have some question answer sessions as well. So many implications. If I'll keep on talking about the different implications. But one I would like to conclude with. Aristotelian syllogistic reasoning consists of three members with three steps: major premise, minor premise, and conclusion. What is a major premise? All men are mortal. What is a minor premise? Mohan is a man. So what is the conclusion? Mohan is a man. Keep this table on the left side, and now look at the right side. Similar kind of pentamod mode you can develop on the basis of Indian epistemological system in general and Nyaya epistemology in particular, which I talked about. There are 5, and on the basis of that, you can develop a model. I'm not saying just you follow what is written in this, but you can develop your own as well. Well, look at the model. The logical form of an inference on the syllogism, according to the Nyayikas, may be like that. S is P, S is M, M is P. And they have given the example, the hill is a fiery because it smokes. So whatever smokes is fiery. As the kitchen, so the hill, and therefore the hill is fiery. They say no. So see the 5 steps logical model. You can develop your teaching models based on that. So pedagogy, teaching, because I know I'm delivering a talk for Teacher University. So Nyaya logic keep on the one hand, Nyaya epistemology keep on the other hand, and you develop your pedagogic model. But unless you understand Nyaya logic, the Nyaya epistemology, you will not come out with this. I remember I was presenting a paper in one of the international conference in Kolkata, and one of the brilliant professor of University of Delhi, now no more, he is in Delhi University, he is in Hawaii, and he said, "Who taught you Nyaya?" I said, "It's on my own." I was presenting a paper, the Nyaya epistemology for and its pedagogical implications. And he said, this is what is needed in the field of education. Not literal translation of one sloka or 2 slokas and say, oh, this is there. But how to implement those ideas in the classroom. So conclusion is this, friends. If you are a teacher, irrespective of your disciplinary orientations, believing in a particular paradigm, you must expose yourself to the epistemology of your discipline. Because I believe that every discipline has its unique feature and it possesses a different epistemology. And then epistemology of disciplinary understanding. And then you will be able to appreciate and understand epistemology of pedagogic understanding. Epistemology for what? I always say, not knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Knowledge for the sake of understanding. Knowledge for the sake of implications. Knowledge for the sake of applications. Knowledge for the sake of analysis. And knowledge for the sake of synthesis as well. And for that, you need to have your epistemic conviction that, you must have your own epistemic belief. So epistemic is the key. And only then you will be able to develop your own epistemic models, your cognitive models, and ultimately your pedagogic models. Thanks to all. I stop here. Over to the organizer for any observations or anything.
Thank you so much, sir, for all the words of wisdom which you radiated here today. But before closing the session, we just want to take some questions, if your time permits, sir.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay. Any other question? Durgesh ji has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Sir, please. Durgesh, sir. Please unmute yourself, sir.
Are you audible?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Actually, just you have explained in very nice way Nyaya Shastra, other things. And actually, sir, I'm also working on this thing, how we can connect our the philosophy with the modern science. And whatever the elements have been explained in our Vedas, like the Panchbhutas. Normally, like we are considering air only the oxygen. All people are thinking like that. But the Vayu Tattva is not only the air, oxygen. It is something else. So how can we connect with the this air Mahatattva? We can say the dark energy, the dark forces, and how the Agni Tattva we can connect with the photons, and because all the elements which are made of we are quark, boson, or mesons, how we can connect. So probably yes, कहते हैं it's really wonderful. And I think as Chancellor told, I think if we can come together, so probably we can link what is the missing link. On the one hand, we are having having a deep understanding on the philosophical knowledge, and on the other hand, the physics knowledge. Yes,
I would like to share with you some anecdotes. Actually, what happens, I remember we had one association when for the first time Bharatiya Janata Party came in power and Vajpayee ji was the Prime Minister. So in NCRT had organized Indian philosophy in Indian classroom, Indian philosophy, Indian psychology in Indian classroom. And I was also invited in NCRT. And I had just completed my PhD after 6 years of my perseverance. And all of a sudden, few professors from psychology became very interested in what I presented, particularly the cognitive model as it is present in Indian thought system. And they said, oh, would like to work on certain learning models. And I was surprised. Some of them, started working also. They published also. And after 2 years, we met. And then they wanted my observations as one of the colleagues. I said, see, first try to understand yourself. Durgeshi, what is happening? We are in a big hurry. We don't give proper time to understand ourselves first, right? And we start working on that, right? That will not serve the purpose. First, you yourself understand. For example, I remember in Kolkata, and that conference was organized by 5 different organizations, Oxford, Cambridge, ICPR, Ministry of HRD, that time HRD, now Education, and Kolkata University and Jadavpur University all participated. And big scholars came. One of my friends, now we are friends, that time we didn't know each other, John Bentham. He's the director of one logical institute in Netherlands. And he also presented something. And from the Nyaya epistemic and Nyaya logic point of view, I asked certain question. He said, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So what I'm trying to say, and there I met a professor, Professor Pai from Department of Philosophy, Jaipur. He had developed 36 pages on a mathematical theorem based on Nyaya logic and Nyaya epistemology. But he said, since mathematics is not my background, I'm unable to go ahead. He gave it to me. And then I met another professor from Austria. He was teaching in Vienna University, and he was teaching Nyaya logic and mathematical theorem. But he had no mathematical background. So what happens unless you understand, you have the access to both kind of knowledge, the mathematical knowledge as well as the Nyaya epistemology and Nyaya logic, you will not be able to generate or develop a particular theorem based on Indian logic or Indian epistemology. So Durgeshi, I know a few scientists in India. They have written some books, I know, particularly on atomic theories. First, I don't know what's your disciplinary background. Suppose you belong to the science.
Actually, I am basically a technical electrical engineer, BTech, MTech, and MBA and PhD.
Great. So you have that.
And I am working. I am working in a BHL general.
Yeah. Spend some time to understand Nyaya logic and Nyaya epistemology, right? I know there are people like one guy who just explained one sutras of Gangesh, and he got the PhD degree in US. The logic is so tossed, so abstract. So first expose yourself to that idea, only then you will be able to integrate the two ideas. Otherwise, it will be half-hearted and not fruitful result. And that's my only solution. Yeah, if you ask me, because I know I have access to 450 literature on Nyaya logic and Nyaya epistemology. And that kind of literature, no school of thought has produced. Neither the Vedant, nor the Sankhya, nor the Yoga. The kind of literature that is there from the logical and epistemological point of view that Nyaya philosophers produced in those days. So we need to have access to that. We need to understand that. Only then we'll. Like see, Austria, Japan, US, Russia, all these countries are conducting research from the logical point of view. But we say, oh, our philosophy is only spiritual. No, that's not case. Like I was so happy when Professor Bhardwaj says that, they are trying to integrate science and spirituality, right? And mathematics and spirituality, aesthetics and spirituality. It will be wonderful journey. Yeah. Any other questions and observations, please?
सर नमस्कार.
नमस्कार विजय जी.
आपसे मिलके सर दोबारा अच्छा लगा बहुत. सर आपके दिन हो गए सुने हुए. सर फ्रॉम योर ग्रेट सेशन I infer that we all are seekers of truth. We might be in different fields. We may be teacher, we may be lawyer, we may be doctor, we may be auditor, we may be different fields, but we all are trying to find out the truth. We are all in search of true knowledge. So what is your opinion about this, sir?
Now my stand is completely different, right? Because as long as I believed completely the realism or the realistic philosophy, the realism says that, there is a one truth and we all pursue for that. But now my understanding is completely different because I have exposed myself to other forms of knowledge, other thoughts of knowledge. I said, see, the truth is a constructed reality. There is nothing like ultimate truth, right? Even if you achieve that ultimate truth, again you will have to create another truth. So my truth is truth, your truth is truth. So truth is a continuous, on a continuum. It's not end of something. When you perceive something, truth has ultimate or truth has one, it means something is going to end. But now, after following so many years, what I have realized, truth is on a continuum, okay, on an infinite journey. So when you achieve one truth, you create and construct another truth to pursue that truth, but don't call any truth as the ultimate truth. And that's why I say that no truth in this world is ultimate truth. Every truth is a mentally, socially, and culturally constructed truth. Taking a clue from the realism, no reality is ultimate reality. Every reality is a mentally constructed reality. Now, the question is how that individual creates and constructs that reality. An individual creates and constructs that reality on the basis of not only his existential reality, but the social and cultural reality as well. So as is my society and culture, I'll create that kind of reality. And that's why the reality of God is contingent upon human mind. So mind is not inside the head, mind is out there. As the society and culture, so is the mind. And definitely so is the God. And that's why the concept of God differs from one culture to another. Arabian concept of God is different from Indian concept of God. Indian concept of God is different from other. And we believe in, plurality. So plural reality is the reality that I believe in. Thank you, Vijayji, for asking this question. So can we end this session?
Thank you so much, sir. It was really an insightful, informative, and enriching session for all of us. And sir, you very well explained the epistemology in Indian thought system. Sir, you talked about Nyaya Darshan in a very simple manner. And sir, you also talked about syllogism, Panchpad syllogism, and how it is different from Aristotelian syllogism. Sir, you also talked about knowledge and nature of knowledge, sources of knowledge. You also talked about how induction and deduction are the same faces of same coin, and they are not opposite to each other. And sir, you also make us aware about the discriminatory knowledge, how it is required for to be sthit pragya personality. So sir, we learned a lot from this session, and I once again render my heartful thanks to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for coming to our session. Yes, sir. आप सभी सर आपका बहुत बहुत आभार कि आप हमारे सेशन में आए. थैंक यू सर.
सर बहुत बहुत आभार. मैं पुनः अरविंद जी आपका आपने हमारे समस्त जितने भी पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं उनका मन मोह लिया. बहुत ही दर्शन की न्याय शास्त्र से जुड़ी हुई इतनी सूक्ष्म चीजों को इतने सुंदर तरीके से आपने वर्णित किया. इट इज रियली अ वेरी मैग्निफिसेंट.
नहीं, मेरा धन्यवाद आपको
सेशन. और मैं इस अपने दिल्ली टीचर्स यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से सर आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ
Thank you so much,
आपके जो
DG sir.
इनोवेटिव वर्क हैं वो मैं अपने इन पार्टिसिपेंट्स को कल भी बता रहा था कि किस
जी।
तरह वर्धा से लेके यात्रा जो है आज इग्नू में आपने इनोवेशन किए हैं. रियली यू आर ए रोल मॉडल फॉर द यूथ और मैं पुनः आपका अपने इस विश्वविद्यालय की तरफ से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ. धन्यवाद.
नहीं, मैं तो आपका इसलिए आभारी हूँ कि आपने वो विषय मुझे दिया जिस विषय के साथ मैं जीता हूँ अपने जीवन को, तो इसके लिए मैं आभारी हूँ. और मैं आप सबको बताना चाहूंगा, ही इज द ओनली वन फ्रॉम माय अल्मा मैटर जो इस पे पहुंचे. और मैं देखना चाहूंगा कि डीटीयू आने वाले समय में टीचर एजुकेशन में भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा के आधार पर, इंडियन एपिस्टेमोलॉजी के आधार पर एक रोल मॉडल मिले. थैंक यू सो मच सर फॉर गिविंग दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी. आप सब
Thank you, sir. Thank you.